Humans do not multitask. You give it 2 tasks, it's going to switch in between those tasks and allocate part of its time to each of those. But that's what's happening in our brain. We are actually trying to allocate brain power to 2 things at once. We can't do it. So what happens is you start lagging behind. You may have gotten the drum fill, but the drum fill's like half a beat late. The question here is, in your drumming, when does a tool become a crutch? And maybe not just a crutch, maybe it actually becomes a hindrance to you. That's what we're going to be talking about. And specifically, I'm going to be talking about sheet music. All right. Now, I think sheet music is great. I have it sitting right here. I have books that I read from. I think sheet music is great. It is a great tool. The same way I think many techniques on the drums are great. They're not the end all be all, but they're great. They're helpful until they're not. Right? And so I often get students asking, oh, is this a crutch or is this something that'll help me? And I say, look, anything is a tool until it's not, right? So the idea here is that whenever you break your leg and you have a cast on it, the only way you can get around is to use a crutch, right? Or some type of wheelchair. You have to have help because you can't put weight on it, right? But once that leg is healed, the crutch is no longer helpful. Why? Because you have to use the foot or the leg for the bone and the skin and the body to get stronger again. You have to rebuild those muscles, right? So after we let it heal, we have to do away with the crutch and we have to go through the pain of actually starting to use that leg again that we broke. And it is the same way in our drumming, except nothing's broken right now. Let's talk about this with maybe one that I often talk with students about is using a click. So whenever I'm trying to, what I would call grid something, so whenever I'm trying to work on the inner beats of maybe my 16th notes or my sextuplets, triplets, I'm really trying to kind of get them to line up at slow tempos. Oftentimes I will take the metronome and set it not to quarter notes, not to eighth notes, but if I'm working on 16th notes, I'll set it to 16th notes. And why would I do that? Because I want to make sure that I can subdivide evenly across those, that I'm treating the space in between the notes correctly. And so I start lining it up with those. Now, where that becomes a hindrance or a crutch is where we can't play good time unless we have that there. Or we get so accustomed to it babysitting us that our timing goes wonky whenever we take it away. And an example is whenever I auditioned for the band that I wound up getting in for quite a while. We wound up signing the Universal Records. The band was called Lovers and Liars. This was years ago. Whenever I auditioned for them, the drummer before me, they already had click tracks and stuff, right? And so we ran some tracks behind what we were doing as well as click and everything. And so whenever I played to it, some of those songs, like there was a 16th note just pounding my ear, and I played a couple times. I was like, hey, whoa. You know, I got past the audition. I was in the band. I was like, we've got to redo the click in this song. I can't handle this. Like, we have to take the 16th notes away. I was wanting to line up with every one of them, and it was making me feel and sound stiff when I was playing, okay? So that's an example of something that was a tool, could be a tool, but then it became a crutch for me, and it started affecting the groove of the song for me because I was so in tune with trying to line up with that. Okay, sheet music. I think it's an incredible tool. Do I think you have to learn to read sheet music to play the drums? No, absolutely not. There are wonderful drummers out there that can't read a lick of sheet music. Dave Grohl's one, Dennis Chambers is one. I don't think Dennis can read sheet music. There's several others. And so it's not, you don't have to read sheet music, okay? And I've worked with several students that maybe they were blind, maybe they were dyslexic. Dyslexic students oftentimes have sheet music is the same way. Things get turned around. If you are dyslexic and you are a drummer and you have trouble reading sheet music, just understand I've worked with some that have that, and the problem is the same issues you have with reading on paper, you also seems to translate over to sheet music and things get jumbled. And many of them are much better learning with their ears instead of with their eyes. Because they can repeat back to me exactly what I play. It's pretty amazing. So with sheet music, I think it's beneficial to learn to at least recognize what the notes are so that you can teach yourself. Here's a book I've been working through for many years. It's a matter of fact, the cover tore off, so I'll just show you the cover. That's how much I play. New Breed, right? By Gary Chester. Classic drum book, everybody should own it. I always go back to it, refresh my playing, and kind of go back through some of those old familiar exercises. I think it's been wonderful because I could take that book and I can continue to teach myself long after my teachers that introduced me to that book have left. Same thing with learning to read books. Long after you get out of school or leave the class, you can read books. I'm a voracious reader. I've got 2 or 3 books going on right now, at all times. I've always fiction, nonfiction. I love reading. I love learning. So it's the same thing with that. The problem with sheet music, and I've really seen it start coming about really as as the internet's gotten more popular. It's like, what is that? What are you talking about? You sound old. But seriously, so my generation had an analog childhood and a digital teenage college years. Okay, that means that the internet did not exist when I was a child. Mobile devices did not exist. Cell phones did not exist. And then whenever I was late high school, I remember having to get on the internet with dial-up. And then when I was in college, the second time, so I went to college and then took a break for 3 years and went and played in New Orleans full-time on Bourbon Street and then went back. And when I went back to college, this would have been 2002, 2003, Facebook was being introduced to universities, as well as I had a flip phone, so that's kind of the progress of my playing with that. And sheet music was around, but it wasn't the only thing, being that I played in orchestral pits for stage shows and I would be given a book, but it would have a lot of slashes. It would have the part wasn't always exactly written out. And now with the internet having been around as long as it is and people trying to put sheet music out, you have so much sheet music out there, drum sheet music, which is great because I could pick up and just be like, oh, let me learn this song. I'm looking at 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover right now. But it's also a hindrance. Why is that? Because we don't know if the person that transcribed that was exactly right. Let's just go ahead and say that, because most of the transcriptions I look at, I find problems with them. And that's okay. It was them listening to it. It's not like this is a slight on them. No transcription is going to be perfect, and some of them are open to expression. And so that's one thing, is I've had students actually learning the song wrong, and I'm like, do you hear what they wrote that and you're doing it, but do you hear that in the song? Like, no. I'm like, okay, it's not in there, And then the other thing is, it's almost like whenever you play Rock Band and you get a streak for getting all the right notes, and then they make the noise or whatever, the guitar goes on a tune or whatever whenever you hit the wrong ones. It's kind of like that when you're trying to play along to sheet music in real time. You're grading yourself. When you're reading sheet music in real time and trying to play the song, there are 3 things going on, and you need to understand this to understand how sheet music interacts with your playing, and why I'm not a huge fan of trying to sight read songs instead of learning them, using the sheet music as a tool to get the basic parts and then putting that up and learning them. You do not have to learn a song note for note. Learn the basic parts, learn some of the basic drum fills so that you know the style of that song. For instance, if you're learning a Beatles song, learn the groove, learn the fill. You're learning Ringo at that point, and then put a little bit of your interpretation on it, okay? But the 3 things that are happening whenever you're reading sheet music, whenever you're trying to sight read sheet music, and why it's so hard, and why your playing's affected so much, and why I don't like it that much, and why whenever I'm on live gigs, my goal is to get off chart. I don't want to be reading charts. The first thing you're doing is playing the drums, right? You're playing the drums. That's a basic thing. That's one skill. So we got to get good at that. The second thing is you're reading sheet music. I can turn on 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, and I can read this sheet music just like a book. I can sit here and just read it. I can mouth, I can sing the part, I can read it. I go, oh, there he's playing 30-second note. I can read that. I can read well enough that can happen, right? The third thing that's going on when we try to sight read and play the drums is now there's a third skill, and that is we are trying to interpret that sheet music in real time on the drums as it goes by. And that, anybody that knows computers, when you ask it to do 2 things at once, what happens? It lags, right? That's how you get computers to crash. Why? Computers do not multitask. Humans do not multitask. Computers task switch. If you give it 2 tasks, it's going to switch in between those tasks and allocate part of its time to each of those. Now, it does those at a very high rate of speed, but that's what's happening in our brain. We are actually trying to allocate brain power to 2 things at once. We can't do it. So what happens is you start lagging behind. You may have gotten the drum fill, but the drum fill's like half a beat late. This podcast is brought to you by the Drum Better Daily program. That's actually my online drum school that I've run now for 12 plus years. Not only have I I've been playing the drums professionally since the age of 15. I've been teaching since the age of 18. Matter of fact, I talked to one of my, or actually my first student a few days ago. I actually called him to see if he could sub a gig out for me. Daniel, love you, man. And he's still playing. He's still doing it on a pro level. And I have been committed to teaching for 22 plus years now. I would love to have you go check it out at stevensdrumshed.com. You can find a link to that in the show notes or video description, whichever platform you're watching it on. But it truly is a community of like-minded drummers where we are striving to just be the best that we can be at the drums. In addition to over 70 pre-recorded drum courses, there's also a tech talk area where we talk about everything technology related as it pertains to the drums, e-kits, recording, doing videos, all of that stuff. There are forums where you can hang out with the other students as well. We do 2 live video student calls every week that you can join if you'd like to. We do guest artist calls monthly, and I'll even make you a personalized lesson plan if that's what you need. Yes, we talk about the nuts and bolts of drumming. Yes, I give you exercises, but we also talk a lot about how to practice more efficiently, how to practice better, and how to get more out of your practice time. I know you're just like me. You're busy, you're being pulled by work, by family, by friends, by other responsibilities. Whenever you practice, you really want to see gains and have it be productive. That is what we focus on in the Drum Better Daily program. I'll have to say personally, it's been really cool because some of these students I've worked with for over 12 years, we started running drum camps here in 2022, and I got to meet some of them in person for the first time. Those drum camps have been selling out, blowing my mind with how much fun they are and how great a time it is to bring the community together in person. I'd love to have you be a part of it. So whenever I have students message me, and this isn't a slide on, by the way, any student that's ever sent me something where you're reading sheet music and I made a comment, this is not a slide on that. I usually hit them back and I say, can I please hear this again without you reading the sheet music? And they'll say, oh, well, there'll be mistakes. I'm like, mistakes are just things that you say they are. It's just play the song. I want to hear you playing the song. Learn the main groove, learn a couple of the main fills, and then put your interpretation on some of the other stuff. That's how I want to hear you play the song. It's night and day difference. The reason as a teacher that I want to hear that is because whenever they are sight reading a sheet of music and they're not, it took me 5 years in college to become an excellent sight reader. The first 2-3 years of college, it sucked. I mean, I was in big band, and the conductor who was from Russia, he was a grad student. Let's do it again for Steve. If I heard that once, I heard it a million times. I would sweat. I would wear 3 shirts. I sweated through all of them. The reason he's saying that, I couldn't read music. I wasn't reading the chart. I was trying to do it by ear, right? So I need to work on my sight reading. But sight reading is not a skill that everybody needs. So the problem is when a student, especially a beginner student, is trying to sight read something, they're not good enough player to do that. Sometimes they're struggling to play the part. So what I'm not sure that I'm hearing is, what am I hearing that's actually processing issues where you're unable to read that fast, and what is actually your playing issues? I can't hear your pocket if you're trying to read it, right? My pocket is different when I'm trying to sight read something. It's very hard. It's a very hard thing. Why can we listen to someone, let's say on a recording or on a radio, not even be looking at them, and you can tell that they're reading something? It takes a lot of skill to be able to disguise that you're reading something when you're live. It's the same way with music. And so I love sheet music as a tool. Let me land the plane here for you. I love it. It's fine. You should use it. But as soon as possible, get away from it. You can do that by making quickie song charts. I have lessons in the members area of my website. I've got an online drum school. I've had it for gosh, this will be 14th year. Hard to believe. And we do in-person drum camps. Use the sheet music, but then start making quickie charts where they're form charts. And it's almost like chord charts for guitar players. Make those. Look up if you want to. I've got some lessons on my side. I've got Song Accelerator course that helps you learn how to do that with my method of doing it. I've learned 64 songs in 2.5 days before. Like I use it extensively in my professional career. And then as well, there's a couple of great books on the Nashville number system, which is kind of a way of making chord charts or quickie charts. So we get away from the sheet music, and basically we're just making a Cliff Notes version of the song so that it can remind us of what we need to do. All right, so I'm not here to bash sheet music. I'm just here to let you know it could be hindering you, and I bet it's holding you up. because you play the song, and if you don't play I know because I do this, if I don't play every note on this piece of paper, I feel like I messed it up. You feel the same way, but you didn't. You played the song. That playing the song is different than copying the song. Playing the song is you using the parts and using musical interpretation and tastefulness to play that song how you would play it. Copying the song is you, and reading the song, mimicking the song, is you just reading the sheet music and doing that 100% perfect. Years ago, I had a drummer come in and just graduated college, and they wanted to do a one-off lesson to kind of evaluate their playing. I said, sure. Well, they had gone through music school, so I'm assuming they're a competent player. I knew the school they went to, I knew the professors. I was assuming they were a competent player. So they'd come in. He came in and very college student-like, 5 or 6 pages, and I think it was a worship tune, put it out there. And I'm not making fun of anyone, by the way. I'm simply saying this is a very typical thing. And he began to play the song, read the whole song down, and then said, okay, so what do you think? And I said, I think you're a very good reader. And he said, well, what about the drumming? I said, well, I don't know. And he said, well, why don't you know? I said, well, you obviously are a good enough drummer that you can read all of that stuff on that piece of sheet music, so you are a competent drummer. I said, but as far as how you sound, oh, I don't know that, because I just heard you read music. That's all that proved to me, that you can read music in real time, and also your playing is competent enough that you can interpret those notes in real time. But that doesn't tell me anything about your groove, your pocket, you as an actual player, your creativity. So I want to hear the song, and I want you to put the sheet music up. But I was very clear with oh, you're a great sight reader, and your skills are obviously good enough to sight read that, but I don't know what you sound like. And it's the same way anytime a student sends me something, and it was just a couple of weeks I had a student send me something, and I asked him, hey, can you send me that without the sheet music? He did. It was a totally different player. Totally different player. I'm talking about went from here to here. Why? Because it was simply, he couldn't, it wasn't that he couldn't read, he could. It wasn't that he couldn't play the drums, he could. He couldn't sight read that fast. That's a totally different skill that I honestly don't care about, unless we're in a situation where I need you to sight read, and then I will hire you expecting that I can give you a chart and you can sight read. You hire musicians knowing that they can do that, right? You don't give them something that you know they can't do. Right? If you want someone that can read on a gig, you don't hire the guy that can't read. He'll tell you, I can't read sheet music, so give me the charts and the songs before and I'll learn them. If you want me to read it in rehearsal, that's not going to work, right? So you hire knowing the skills. But it was a totally different experience, totally different player, and the playing went through the roof. I was like, dude, you sound great on this. And I just couldn't hear that, okay? So if you're using sheet music, that's great. Please keep it as a tool. When it becomes a crutch, throw it away. We don't want it to be a crutch in our learning. If you ever need help with your learning, I'm always here. You can hit me up, help@stevensdrumshed.com. We have drum camps. I think we have 4 spots left for the 2025 season. You're welcome to do that. I think it's at the September camp. The link is in the show notes or the video description. Or you can drum online drum school, and I'd love to work with you. But no matter what you do, I'll see you here in the next episode.